This is Module 3 of the Institute of Microtraining's Training Certification Program. You should have already completed Modules 1 and 2. This will now build on that knowledge and take you into the realm of developing and creating your own microtraining programs for both your own delivery and those of other consultants or clients. First of all, let's remind ourselves what it is that we're looking to achieve here. In this module, we're going to cover an introduction to microtraining and microlearning, just to recap the key principles. We'll then take you through a step-by-step course outline, design principle and structure, which is how to create a course using a proven methodology. The course content and structure will be covered in depth. There are 12 points and we'll cover each one in detail. We'll also review the microtraining paper, the micro paper and the training materials, although this will be covered more in Module 4, as will the learning card questions. These last two will be introduced in this module and covered in more detail later in the program. First, let's just remind ourselves the purpose of microtraining is to improve the return on education for a customer, organization or client. This means the training needs to be measurable and it needs to have an effect in people's day-to-day work-related activities. This is critical and we must remember this at all times when developing course materials. Also, just to recap, there are 4 parts to a microtraining learning program. The first one, it has to be based on real-world tasks and needs. The kind of activities, the kind of knowledge, the kind of skills that actual businesses require of their staff in whatever area of expertise they use them. This is fine-tuned for each and every client, as you will see. The next is an element of face-to-face training, typically a half-day workshop, followed by a very structured and high-tech mobile learning application, which will lead to measurable achievements and improvements that can be picked up both after the learning has been taken place, but also maybe some period after that when there can be measures in the skills and knowledge of people at the workplace. The learning retention principles we covered in Module 1 and also Module 2 are fundamental to our design principle. The loss of retention happens very quickly after the first introduction or assimilation of information or knowledge. What we need to make sure is this curve is bucked and the trend is reversed. So within a month of leaving a training event, the retention is still at 80 or 90%, which is as good as it was when they were in the training room. The smartphone learning app puts the training course in each and everybody's hand. Smartphones now are ubiquitous. We all use them, we use them all the time, for both personal and business. Bring your own phone to work is a common situation in most businesses. Even staff that don't require a work mobile phone will still be able to use and access their own. And there is no cost for accessing internet in most cases. The 3.5-hour workshop is also highly structured and very carefully designed, as you will see. And we will look at both the design of this and in future modules the facilitation and delivery techniques. So now let's look at the 12 methods, the 12 steps that we would go through in this order to create a microtraining program. As you can see from the slide, these are the 12 stages of developing a microtraining course. The first one is to create the title of the microtraining program. Sounds relatively straightforward, but we will discuss this in more detail in a moment. You then move through each of these 12 steps, defining the 3 core contents, up to 10 learning objectives per each of the core contents, maybe less, but certainly no more. The transformation of learning objections into a series of questions, your golden thread, your roadmap through the microtraining, defining the input phase. These are the sessions where you will input knowledge according to your learning goals. Defining the practice sequence. These are the learning activities, participation exercises and so on. Then you would need to create the ignition questions These are the subject breaker type activities that will introduce each of your 3 core content sessions. Define a series or a collection of reboots that are appropriate to the type of course that you have. Summarize the contents of the micro training, at least the top core contents, in a micro paper, pre-course questionnaire and instructor guide. The last 2 of course being very important to the success of the training. First of all, let's look at the title of the micro training program. I'm going to refer to some of the documentation, some of the PDFs that are accompanying this particular module. And you can see the example we're using is the telephone skills course. Now, this is a relatively common program. It's important to many customer service, help desk, sales, and indeed general staff. It could cover a wide range of different topics. But let's look at how we would title it. And let's imagine that the brief that we're working on is telephone techniques for customer service staff. These are staff taking inbound inquiries for customers that need to create a positive impression, capture information, and either provide an answer to a question or determine the next step for their inquiry. So, what are some of the potential titles that could be used in this situation? Maybe pause the recording at this point and jot down a few ideas of your own, starting with the most obvious one of telephone techniques for customer service. Try and get 3 or 4 others, and then we can pick up and review some of the ideas that I will share with you as well. Pause the recording now, jot down some ideas, and start again in a moment. The next step in developing any micro training program is to decide on your 3 core content areas and making a clear definition for each of these. When we are looking at a telephone skills course, there are a range of different approaches that we could cover depending on who we're training and what their target learning objectives are. Where we may need to be rather flexible is where the course will be run in many different situations for a wide range of different applications and groups. Therefore, the content needs to be specific enough to be engaging and useful, but also broad enough to be flexible and adaptable. The 3 main sessions, the 3 main core content areas, will map onto the 3 main modules of the workshop, which will then link into the learning card subject areas and the supporting micropaper, audio and video of the learning app. So getting this step right is really important. Think of this as 3 legs of a stool. Each of the 3 content areas should be independent and standalone, but they should also support and link to each other, therefore strengthening an overall understanding of that subject. Because we only have half a day, 3.5 hours, we need to really prioritize and understand what are the top 3 content areas for that particular subject. This may be more challenging where you may have a more difficult or more complex subject, something like project management or management effectiveness or Lean Six Sigma. In those situations, we may consider doing a series of courses, but at the same time, we are limited and we really have to stick to this rule of the 3 core content areas. So in this example of telephone skills, I have decided that the first module, which will last about an hour in the live workshop, is around the use of an effective telephone voice. The second module is around the opening and ending pieces within a telephone conversation. So that's initial greeting, qualification, taking control of the call, and at the end, the summarizing, the checking, and any other pieces of information that need to be imparted, either for legal or procedural reasons. And the third section is questioning techniques. One of the most challenging factors of a call, inbound or outbound, is how you control it and make the call valuable and productive in the shortest possible time without rushing. One of the most important skills with that is questioning and of course listening. So I feel that's a valuable third element in this particular topic. Take a moment now to think about either if you were attending a course on telephone skills, would these three content areas be applicable to you? Are there other areas that you would like to see covered? Or if you were running a course yourself, would you choose three content areas, or would you have additional ones? For example, a trainer I was talking to recently said it would be essential to have a section called Gaining Rapport on the telephone, talking about matching and mirroring, word usage and so on. Now I agree that is very important, but at some point you need to make a distinction at what you're going to leave in and what you're going to leave out. So don't rush this step of your training course development. It's the foundation for everything you're going to do from here onwards.